promise you guys are only going to have to deal with looking at my rug for like another maybe 1 or 2 reviews. Boom. The Glock 43X. So I'm going to give you guys my first initial impressions of this gun just based on holding it. I am keeping this gun. I did pay for this gun. It is mine. Paid for it with my own money. Proof being that it has night sights on it already. So I think a lot of people wanted to hate this gun when it was introduced. I think a lot of people had very similar things to say in the respect that Glock is doing something that they should have done a long time ago. And I 1000% agree. This should have been the original Glock 42. 42 shouldn't have ever happened. The 42 should have been there. Boom, here's our single stack, super slim and concealable gun. In my opinion, that's the way that it should have went, but it didn't. And somehow, lots of other companies, reaching into my own pocket here, managed to do a very similar thing. Now let's look at the shield while I have it, and the 43X side by side. The shield is a bit thicker. I'll give it that. Both are wearing night sights. And dimensionally, this is where the Glock actually kind of surprised me. It's only a little bit longer than the shield. And if we look at the shield, as far as magazine capacity goes, we only get 7 rounds. Now, in my other pocket, in a very slim, easy to manage, I say that and then I can't actually get to it, though I'm wearing these effing gloves. So the shield obviously has different offerings. So now we have a 10 round mag. It fills up the entire hand. Now let's compare the two. We can see that the shield with a 10 round mag is considerably longer and a hell of a lot heavier. I have to say I'm not completely disappointed with the 43X. I think the price point was competitive. I think there's a couple of things they could have added that they didn't, but you know, I'm not going to gripe too much. However, I will say it would have been nice to see an ambi-slide stop. I don't think that would have been too much to ask for, not super obtrusive and relatively easy to do, as we've come to learn in the Gen 5s. And the lack of rail, I personally like. I can see some of you not liking that. So if you do in fact like having a light on your concealed weapon, that might be a huge hit for you. So basically what they did with the 43 is they just made it a little bit longer to give us a single stack-ish. It's my understanding that this is kind of like a wobble stack. Not double, but not completely single. So as far as everything goes, it feels very Glock-like, just thinner. So we get 2 10-round magazines. It would have been cool to see a less than flush-fitting 12-round as an addition to the 10, but again, nitpicking at this point. One thing that I noticed that kind of bugged me, if you look at the 43X and where it says Glock, it's a more dimpled etching as opposed to a laser engraved etching. Reminiscent of the difference between the CM9 and the PM9. This definitely has a CM9 kind of quality to it. Doesn't have, you know, the nice etching. Again, another thing that I'm just griping and nitpicking about, because again, I went into this wanting to kind of hate the Glock 43X. I initially thought like, oh my god, that's a gun that I'm definitely going to pass on. Maybe I'll get it for a review, and I could actually see my wife carrying this, because she carries inside the waistband in a compression short type thing. And she saw it and she was like, ooh, is this for me? And I was like, yeah, sure. That's totally why I got it. You can have it. So 10 plus 1, I mean, it's more than the Shield's offering, but let's talk about the obvious competitor here, and that's going to be the Sig 365. Does the Glock 43X beat the 365? Hell no. I added these sights, they were $100. This Glock was $450-ish, I believe. 365 is $500 or $550. The fact that the 365 comes with the night sights, it is a double stack. Magazines are smaller, more concealable. I just think the 365 all around is a better gun. Do I think that the 43X is as big of a joke as I initially anticipated? No, I don't. If I'm being honest with you, if you were to ask me, hey, should I get a 43X? I would say if you can't find a 365, yeah, go for it. I, again, wanted to complain about and hate this gun, but I honestly, I don't dislike it. I really don't dislike it. There isn't much to hate. And again, having 11 rounds for concealed carry, you know, that's not too bad. So, one thing I think a lot of people are looking at with this was the 48 and how long it was. And that one, I can tell you right now, I'm never even going to consider buying or looking at. But let's look at its direct competition. And actually, it's really not its direct competition. I'll get to that in a second. So, slide length obviously is going to be shorter. And if we look at grip height, it's almost exactly the same. So this obviously is the Gen 519, fresh out of my wife's pants. A little bit different profile, obviously, but pretty much damn near the same height. Just the actual 19 is a little bit longer. So one thing that I will say is the 19 is a much bulkier gun, considerably heavier, quite a bit thicker in the grand scheme of things. This only holds 15 plus 1. This holds 10 plus 1. Now side by side, this thing actually does feel rather minuscule. So it is a much smaller feeling gun, but in hand, it does feel, I want to say almost compact, not so much a subcompact. And again, it's everything on this is very reminiscent of Glock. It is a very Glock-like trigger. Here you go, because I do it in all of my videos. It does actually, let me take that stupid mag out. It does actually feel heavier than a standard Glock trigger. It feels more than 5.5 pounds. It's more than I'm used to, I think. Then again, I haven't shot a factory Glock trigger in a long time. So, it does feel heavy. It does feel very, if this was in a pocket or, you know, compression shirt, compression shorts, however you decided to carry. Most of you guys are going to be inside the waistband. I would say this is definitely a heavy enough trigger that I would not worry about a negligent discharge, predicated upon the fact that you have a really, really good holster. That should always be the case. It is a bit gritty. Again, that is a Glock thing. But let's tear it down. Familiar looking recoil assembly. Non-octagonal rifling. Very Glock-like barrel. And very Glock-like slide. Now you will notice a oversized striker block, which, thank you. I'm okay with that. Very simplified as far as the slide goes. I'm going to go back to the finish here in a second. And internally, again, this could have very easily been ambi, though for slimness and not wanting it to get caught on things and people maybe eventually learning the actual battery of arms and not using this as anything other than a side stop, maybe people are actually starting to catch on and realizing that it being ambi isn't a thing. However, for general masses, I can see most people wanting it to be ambi. Me personally, I couldn't care one way or another. Just something that I'm pointing out for you guys who may actually give a shit. So reassembly is going to be obviously exactly the same as the Glocks that you are all used to. Not super easy through a viewfinder, but so overall I have to say, amazingly, I'm not disappointed in this. Everything is very well melted, everything is relatively smooth, and one of the questions that was posed to me, and something that me and a buddy were kind of mulling over, is why did they go bitone? Why not black? And honestly, I think they did this to save money. I think the honest to God truth behind the reason that they went bitone is simply for the fact that they wanted to save money. This does feel like a bead blasted, I can't even begin to guess what kind of finish. It's not Tenifer, it's not their new DLC coating. It is kind of rough feeling. It doesn't feel raw, and I don't think Glock would be stupid enough to make the slide raw. I think if Glock was to have made this an actual raw finish, they would be putting their necks on the chopping block, because the vast majority of people are going to be carrying this inside the waistband, and as we know, sweat equals salt, and salt equals rust. So I think that would have been the end of Glock. So overall, I have to say I'm not extremely impressed, but at the same time, I'm not disappointed. I thought I was going to buy this and think it was the dumbest thing ever, but holding it in hand, I kind of get it. So what does this replace? Well, for my wife, it's probably going to actually replace her 19. 11 rounds as opposed to a much bulkier, much heavier 15 rounds in a much slimmer package. The 43X, is it worth it? I'm going to go ahead and say yes, actually, which I wasn't anticipating saying. Now, as far as the Glock lineup goes, what else has 10 rounds and is a compact or subcompact? That would be the Glock 26. So if you have a Glock 26 and you're every day carrying a Glock 26, I would probably urge you to give this a look. And again, no one's paying me to say any of this. This is all, believe it or not, something I thought up on my own. And, overall, I would have to say that the 43X is actually something that I could see being a very viable candidate for those of you who are, traditionally Glock enthusiasts who are used to the battery of arms and the angle of the grip, or maybe have the 43 and are looking to upgrade because you want a realistic, amount of rounds. I think the 43X is actually a relatively good choice. Again, I have to say the 43X didn't actually disappoint me. I went into this thinking that I was going to think this was the dumbest thing ever, but I kind of get it. Glock, as per usual, you're a little too little and a little too late. But at the same time, they finally actually did what they should have done originally years ago. So, I guess it's up to you guys as the end consumer to either pass this up, and I saw a lot of people say hard pass, either pass this up or potentially give them another shot, pun not intended, but it's there. I, again, initially thought that this was going to be something that I was going to hate. But as I hold it in my hand and play with it more, I do like it. And I think a lot of people are going to be very, very split on this. But it is very slim, it's very lightweight, it's thinner than my thumb. And again, 10+1, not really anything to turn your nose up about. Especially in the day of compact pistols. If you look at the shield, I honestly think this is a much better option. And this came out of my own pocket. I wasn't even planning on pulling this out of my pocket. There is, in fact, around in the chamber, and it's as it would be in my pocket. So as I'm coming to a close on this, I'm trying to think of gripes other than the fact that they didn't do this sooner. I honestly can't really think of many. You know, most Glocks don't come with night sights. Most Glocks have been slow on innovation. I mean, you guys asked for it, and here it finally is, I guess. Finally. So, why they didn't do this sooner, couldn't tell you, but it's here now. Are there better options out there? I think so, yeah. For around $500, absolutely. Overall, would I recommend it? I'm actually going to say yes. I think they did a really good job, albeit maybe a little bit too late. I guess that's up to you guys to decide whether or not you're going to give it a shot. But ultimately, I think you should. At least go out to your local gun shop if you can find one, and handle one. Rainier Arms does have these in stock, so. And for whatever it's worth, these are the night vision sights. I'm starting to like them more and more as I use them. Not a knock on Trijicon, I just think that they do the same exact thing that Trijicon does, a little bit cheaper. Minus that embarrassing selector lever that they just released. I think that thing is absolutely retarded. Alright, so we're going to pretend really quick that you're reaching for your morning gun. Okay, let me see that in your hand, lift up. You're very used to the 19.
I am.
And you shoot it extremely well.
I do.
How many rounds would you say you've put through that?
Probably like 5,000.
Yeah. Okay, so now pick up that one. What are your initial thoughts first picking that up?
It's more comfortable for me. Thinner.
Give it a good squeeze. So, go ahead and actually press it out as if you were to shoot. So 10 plus 1. Now grab your 19 and press it out. As far as comfort goes in general, how do they feel against each other?
I actually feel like this is more comfortable. This side, with my little hands, I have a little bit of pressure right there. Or I have to kind of rotate my hand.
So you carrying inside the waistband every day, which would you rather carry?
I mean, if I'm going for not printing and true concealment, this obviously would show less.
But realistically, I never even see that 19 on you anyways.
No, I mean, they're the exact same size.
But as far as weight and everyday comfort, would you feel okay carrying just 11 rounds?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So when I first pulled that out of the box before I did the review, what'd you ask me?
Oh, is it my new carry?
Yeah. I told them the answer was yes, if you want it.
I did just get the EMP.
That is true. Then again, that's a $1,400 gun that is 10 plus 1, that's 10 plus 1. And considerably lighter. Dun dun dun. And no external safeties. So, there you have it, guys. She did, in fact, find the 43X more comfortable than a 19 to hold.
I did.
So, something else to consider from the horse's mouth.
Did you just call me a horse?
Yep. All right. Love you guys.